What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. So this video is part 2 in this little mini series that I'm doing right now about my story with alcoholism. My last video, I believe it was number 56, covered my youth, my teens and 20s, and the kind of drinker I was that eventually led me to when I went to rehab. And then that's where this story is going to continue from. But before I go down this story, I have to address something here. I just want y'all to know, and if you haven't watched the video prior to this one, go check it out and you'll get this reference. I'm not holding a pen, all right? There's not going to be any clicking for this video, so I'm really sorry about that. I didn't even realize I was doing it. Not until I started seeing comments. I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense because that's how I am. When I'm nervous, right, I just happened to start the video with a pen in hand, and then from that point forward, it was autopilot. And, you know, making these videos is not the easiest, so that's probably why my pen clicking was in hyper mode and didn't even realize I was doing it. So my apologies on that. But see, hands-free here. So quick recap. Like I said, last video was about all of my drinking and getting a DUI, still driving drunk after a DUI, going into probation because of that DUI, 2 weeks outside of being done with probation, drinking and driving again. And then eventually it all comes to a head when I go to a casino to see some friends play. And there's a lot of stuff going on in my personal life too, and I just end up getting wasted, sleeping on a casino floor. The next day, I realize I'm not right. I need help. I call my therapist, and then this is where this video will start now. So, actually, as I mentioned in this last video, what I do is I meet my therapist, and he just addresses the situation in front of him when he meets me, and he just asks me what's going on, and I just lost it, right? I just had this total mental breakdown. And I explained this in a little more detail in the last video, at the end of the last video. But here we are now. My therapist is driving me to rehab. And it was such a feeling of, it was almost bliss, and that's an exaggeration. But for the first time that day, and quite honestly, for the first time since the day before, I felt a little at peace because I'm like, I know I'm doing something I need to do. And I'm running away. Like, I'm disappearing. No one else knows this is happening. You know, my mom doesn't know. You know, my daughter's mother doesn't know. No one knows except for my therapist and his wife. You know, so... But it was a sense of, okay, like, I don't know what's ahead of me, but what I do know is I'm out of here. Like, it doesn't matter what your job says. It doesn't matter what your boss thinks. It doesn't matter what anyone says. I'm going into this place and they're locking the key. You know, you can't get to me. No one can get to me. I'm in a facility. So I knew enough to feel the comfort in that. With that said, rehab is not fun. It really isn't. So the first thing that happens is intake. And mind you, I'm so hungover. I feel miserable. I'm still in the same clothes I wore when I slept on the hotel room floor. Just feel awful. And my therapist takes me to the front desk, admits me, does everything he needs to do. And then he's like, man, call me when you come out. I'm like, all right. So then they put you in a waiting room. The first thing they do is they take your shoelaces, your belt, any jewelry that you may have, your wallet, your keys. I mean, they take everything. Your phone, it's gone. And then you sit and wait and wait and just alone in a room, just sitting there forever. At least that's how it was for me. And then finally someone comes in and then they ask you a million questions and you're filling out all this stuff, and it's just a process to when they finally let you in essence is what, like, it's not a jail, but it kind of is like a jail where it's just one room. It's like a tank like you would have in a jail. And everyone's just sitting in there. All the patients are just sitting in one room. And there's a second room attached to it, which is more for the room when they have like a guest speaker over or you're doing group therapy. So there's like two rooms, and then there's hallways all around it, and then a door to the outside, which takes you to the smoking area, and that's all fenced in, tall fences, so you can go outside when they let you, and that's it. So I'm a shy person to begin with, but now I'm getting pushed into a room full of strangers that are all, let's just say everyone's there for help. So personalities are pretty strong, and I'm just, like I said, I feel like crap, and I want to be there, but I'm just nervous and terrified and just uncomfortable. But so eventually you just sit in the room, and then you're like, hey, what's your name? I'm Derek. How you doing? And you just start meeting the people. And everyone is missing their shoelaces, and it's just funny. So, so naively, going back to when I felt calm and comfort when I was heading to rehab, naively I was like, well, this is going to be good. I'm just going to be able to chill. I'm going to have a bed. I'm just going to be able to relax and get away from everything. This is going to be great. No, it's not a summer camp. It's not like I'm going into a hotel room. You get a room with a roommate. You each get your own bed. You can't go in that room until 9 o'clock. Doors are locked until 9. It opens up, and then you have an hour where you can go you have a little bit of freedom in that hour where you can go from the holding room, the hang room, down the hall to your room and back, and they let you go out and smoke. It's like that one moment of some kind of freedom. And then 10 o'clock, doors shut. Then you go to sleep. And then 6 o'clock, bam, doors open, lights on. You got like 30 minutes to get ready, and you're out, and the door's locked behind you. And then you don't have your room all day. You just got to go hang out in this little hang area where you're not even allowed to have pens and pencils to draw with because you could use them as weapons. So it's just a uncomfortable feeling. Long days. And then they portion the day out with different kinds of therapies and one-on-one, small group, big group. And throughout all of that, if you want to use the restroom, you got to ask. You can't just go to the bathroom. So like you have to go find a nurse. Can I use the restroom, please? And they're busy. So you always get the eye roll. Like, okay, I'll let you go to the bathroom. Like, really? Like, you're going to eye roll me? I got to go take a leak. What are you talking about? I'm sorry I got to bother you. I'm sorry at the time I'm a 35-year-old man having to ask to go to the bathroom. This is your rule, not mine. So can I please go to the bathroom? But it was always like we're bothering them just to go to the bathroom. And let's face it, a lot of these medications that they put you on, which we'll get to, sometimes those medications make you go number 2, so that's a whole other story. But so through this process now, you meet with an actual doctor. They give you more of an assessment, and they're quick to diagnose you with something and put you on medicine. Now, there's some instances where it's like important. If someone's coming in trying to kick heroin, or they've been an alcoholic in the sense where they're drinking a liter of whiskey every day for 20 years, that's deadly. If you just quit drinking like that after that kind of drinking, you could die. You could have a stroke, seizures. I mean, it's not good. So they have to put you on medicine in order for you to, kick and detox off of this stuff, you need medical attention. So there's some medicines out there that help you through that. There's medicines out there that are used to wean you off of opiates or heroin or those types of drugs, where it's kind of like a synthetic version of heroin. So they're kind of getting you high at first, but it's designed so they slowly taper you down off of it. So the staff and the doctors are quick to try to figure out what's going on and get you medicated. Well, in my case, I didn't really have to detox. I was hungover, but I wasn't the drinker that was coming in drinking, hard liquor every day for 10 years. So I didn't really have any withdrawals. I wasn't there for that, which was good, because protocol is they wake you up throughout the whole night to take your blood pressure. They just wake you up, they pick your arm up, they wrap the thing around it, and and they wake you up in the middle of the night, and then, okay, good, and then they walk out. 2 hours later, they come in every 2 hours when you're on detox. So they had to do it to me for, I think it was 2 nights, and then that was it. I didn't have to do that anymore. But my roommate had it for like a week, so I was still getting woken up every 2 hours anyway. So this is where I, through the assessments and just seeing the doctors and going through the process, this is when I'm officially diagnosed in writing as bipolar 2. Now, I've kind of briefly mentioned it in the past, but that's what they labeled me as, which is, bipolar, highs and lows, manic depression. Everyone has highs and lows, but bipolar is to the extremes. Bipolar 2 is high, low, but tend to go lower than go high. So you get manic and you have mania, but bipolar 2 is really for, like, you're more susceptible to the depression side of it, which fits me. And then it's like, all right, let's take some medicine here. So at the time I was on Lexapro, which is an antidepressant, and Lamictal, which is more for bipolar, which is a mood stabilizer. So what happens is, I didn't know this at the time, but antidepressants, in the 3 times I've been on them, would kind of amp me up. And sometimes too much. I'd get manic. This is a common thing with antidepressants for people. So they're like, all right, well, in order to kind of soften that, we'll put you on a mood stabilizer. So the antidepressant's trying to push me up out of depression, which is what it's designed to do, but it's taking me too high. It's making me manic. So all right, so now we'll take this other drug that will then squish it down and try to make you less manic, and then not depressed. So if your mood is like this, now with just these 2 drugs, it's like it's trying to crunch it down where your mood is just like this. So then now I'm in the hospital. I continue to do those 2 things, and then they give me lithium. They put me on lithium. Now, I used to always think lithium was like this whack-a-job, medicine that is for straitjackets. But no, apparently it's like a widely used drug. I think it has a negative connotation. When you hear lithium, at least in my mind, you think someone in a straitjacket, right? Like that's medicine for the crazy people. No, a lot of people are on lithium, and it does really good for a lot of people. And it's a mood stabilizer. Now, lithium and this other drug I said I was on, Lamictal, what they really are anti-seizure medicines. But through studies realized, well, it also works really good for mood stabilizing and people with bipolar. So that's why they're used for that. Lithium is for anti-seizures. That's what it's for. But for years now, it's been used for mood stabilizing. But now they're hitting me with that stuff. And Lithium is a different kind of drug because it gets into your blood system. It takes a while to, get into your system, and then you don't want to just quit it. You have to wean out of it because it's the way it metabolizes in your system is different. I can't truly explain everything about it, but so for the first week I was on it, it made me sick. It didn't feel good. I had to go to the bathroom a lot, put it that way. But now with all this stuff I'm on, like they make your mood like this. They don't give you much wiggle room on being depressed or manic, happy or sad. You kind of just blah. You're watching the paint dry on the wall. So now we're doing all that, and I was in for about 2 weeks. And luckily at the time I had great insurance. So they were definitely not quick to let me out because they knew that they had the insurance that they could pull from. But it was needed. By this time, okay, now everyone knows. And then at the time, my daughter's mom brought me some clothes, so you're allowed to make phone calls and stuff. So it's not totally like jail, but man, you can do anything. Looking back on it, it makes sense because what they're doing is they're just trying to simplify it and strip you of as many responsibilities as possible. They walk you, they wake you up, they kick you out of the room. When it's breakfast time, everyone line up like you're in middle school, and you line up and you walk down the hallways in a single file line. But you eat when they tell you to eat, and you eat whatever they have. You go back, you do it for lunch, and then you do it for dinner. They line you up for your medicines. You don't have to think about taking your medicine. It's medicine time, and you go on your line. You walk up to the door in the little desk area, and they give you a little cup. Here you go, Derek. And they have a cup for me with what I need. And it's just a line. You take your medicine. You're good. Now you go back in the hang room. And they just strip you of any responsibility, which I get why they're doing that. They're just trying to stabilize people as much as possible and find the baseline. You hear that all the time. What's your baseline? And so then they can work from there and be like, okay, your baseline is low and depressed, so we'll fix that. And if you're erratic, it's hard to really diagnose what's up. You got to find that baseline. So they strip these responsibilities from you to make it just easier. So you can just watch the wall, and drool on yourself, basically. So what happens is when they feel like you're ready to take that next step, they discharge you. And then you move into the inpatient program. The outpatient program. Everything I just explained is inpatient, and then you move into outpatient, where you're still in the hospital. Again, thankfully I had a job that had short-term disability. So not only did I have great insurance to cover all this stuff, but I was still making my checks, which was really exceptional. So my company gave me 11 weeks short-term disability. So now I'm 2 weeks into this thing. I don't have to go back to work. So now my outpatient is I got to go 7 days a week to a different building that's part of this whole campus. 7 days a week, you go for an hour and a half, and then do group therapy and processing, where you fill out a paperwork. You fill out a worksheet every morning. How you feel, what's your mood, 1 to 10, suicidal thoughts, thoughts of harming yourself, all the standard stuff. You got to fill it out every time. And then you just do exercises, not like physical exercises, therapy exercises in a group. And then you're good to go. So you get to go home. What's weird though is when you're inside inpatient, all it takes is a couple weeks, and you get almost what I call institutionalized. Like, I got used to being babied. Not babied in the sense of like, oh, Derek, everyone, they don't give anyone sympathy, but babied in the sense that they tell you when to line up for this, they tell you when to line up for that. You make zero decisions. So you kind of fall into that, and then you start feeling like you're used to being told what to do. It's just like, all right, where do I go next? You forget to kind of how to think on your own. I was only in there 2 weeks, but when I left, it felt weird. It felt weird being on my own, like driving down the street. It was a long 2 weeks in there. And I can't imagine what it's like for people that are in prison for years. Jail and prison for years and years and years, and then they finally go out in the real world and they've been in jail for 10 years, 15 years. I can't imagine what that must feel like. But I was also happy to get out too. And then also it's like, all right, now you're responsible not only for feeding yourself, and you're responsible for taking your medication like you're supposed to take, but now you're responsible to not do the drug anymore. Not, for me, drink anymore. Can't drink when you're inpatient, right? Makes sense. So now it's reality. It's really what slaps you in the face. So I took to outpatient well. It was cool. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed going to it. But then after a few weeks of that, I was starting to have, I don't want to say complications, but I wasn't in a good place. I was too medicated. I was still on those 3 drugs, Lexapro, Lamictal, and lithium. And it was just too much. And bipolar medicine can have side effects. You gain weight. You can just not feel good. It's just like, oh, I was just like, not good. But then my mental stability kind of started slipping away. I was just not right. I was starting to get depressed again. And suicidal thoughts is pretty common for me, but a lot of people, so I don't want to try to paint some nasty picture here and try to over dramatize this at all. But, I had a bad night. So the next day, I filled out my paperwork, my little worksheet, and rated this and rated that. And then the final thing is, do you have any comments? Do you, embellish on what feelings you have? And I just wrote down, last night I thought of this. I won't go into detail, but I wrote down what I thought of the night before. Turned it in. We all go to our classroom. 10 minutes later, the director walks in. She's like, yes, can I speak to Derek, please? Oh, okay, cool. And I go out there and she's like, give me your keys, please. I was like, uh-oh, what? It's like, we got to walk you back into the hospital. I'm like, oh, really? They're like, yeah, yes, based off the paperwork, we have to. I was like, okay. And you're just not expecting it. Because it's literally just a walk from the outpatient to the inpatient. So the director literally walked next to me as I'm, in essence, going back to jail. And then again, it's like no one knows. It totally interrupts your life. You only have the clothes on your back, and I'm fixing to lose my shoelaces again, right? And it's like, okay, here we go. And then the whole intake again, all of that. Just repeat the first story I told you. Bam, did all that again. So now I'm back on the inside, right? What I should mention too is, in a weird way, you kind of like, you're with these people all day, every day, that you kind of make friends, you don't, but I mean, these aren't people that you want to see outside. But you kind of get used to them. And when I went back in the second time, there was one person that was still there from the first time. I was like, what's up, man? And I forget his name, but so this time though, I'm ready for business. I'm like, okay. I felt like I needed to be in there, so I wasn't totally upset. I was like, okay, I know why I'm in here, but now I'm gonna do it right here. Not that I didn't try the first time, but I'm like, I do not want to come back here ever again. So let's try harder. And did my best to go through the programs again, and all the different assessments and different group therapies, and I kept my head down more. I was just like, I don't want to get involved with any drama in here. I'm focused. I'm not coming back to this place ever again. So the second time I was in, it was shorter. It was just a little over a week. And then I'm like, see you later. I'm out of there. And then I went back into the outpatient program. And then back into the classes. But what happened was, when I went in the second time, when I got to the doctor, I'm like, look, we gotta cut some of this medication out, because that was part of the problem. I was like, I'm on these 3 things, no more. Like, we gotta fix this. We gotta do something about it. It's too much. Which is another reason why they often will put someone back inside, because some of the really stronger cases, the bigger cases, one little tweak of a medicine can really flip someone out. Like, it can really just mess with the chemical making, and they can get really manic, really depressed. You start messing with psych meds, it can really change your behavior, make it, sporadic, crazy behavior. So they want to monitor it. I wasn't in that place, but this is the place to do it. And if they're going to really tweak your medicines, then it's the good place to be in case you get some kind of reaction. For my case, I wasn't replacing or adding, I was cutting. It's like, not literally cutting, but out. I'm done with this medicine here. So I guess the compromise was, well, I'm on an antidepressant and 2 mood stabilizers, so let's just do 1 mood stabilizer. And they took the Lamictal off. Still on lithium. So, but it did help. It did help. I felt that it was almost like I was compressed, like I had no mood. But because I was so lifeless and so just baselined, it made me depressed, even though I'm not supposed to be feeling depression. Hard to explain. But so I get out of there, back into outpatient, and finally finished it up. It was 11 weeks total. And by this time, I feel good. I'm kind of ready to go back to work. I don't want to. This is now where we're going to start breaking into, episode 3, if you will, the final episode of this series, like a little Netflix limited series here. Because the next part of the story is interesting, because I make some big decisions for my life straight out of rehab. Here I am going back to work at the warehouse that I was working at, where I got the forklift accident. Again, if you haven't watched the first part of the story, check out video 56, where I give this whole background story on what happened there at my job, which led to all this. So I'm going to leave it there. So the moral of this story is, rehab is necessary for a lot of people, but there's two components. I don't want to simplify it that much, but in my mind, in my experience, you go to rehab for the therapy and to get diagnosed, you get on some medication, and you get assessed and all that. But also rehab is there for people that are sick, that are trying to detox and come off of drugs and alcohol. I saw some people in there that were sick. What happens is people go in, and then once they get through that and they get through all the detoxing and everything, they start feeling better again. They want to get out of there. They couldn't care less about therapy. They're just there to feel better. And then sadly, when they leave, then, you know, that's not everyone, but there's a percentage of people that then just relapse and immediately or within weeks of leaving. But it's crucial for the ones that really truly want to kick it, or for the medical part of it. If you are doing hard drugs all day, every day, or drinking alcohol all day, every day for years, you need medical attention in order to kick it. I mean, you can go cold turkey, but man, you're gonna be sick, you know. But there's more to it than that. There's more to it than just detox. You need to then start working on the reasons, the deep psychological reasons as to what got you to that place. And that's why the therapy is so important about it. That's the most important part of it. That, like, out of the 11 weeks I was there, I detoxed for a day, you know, like, and other patients people that I met in there that were detoxing off more serious stuff. I mean, they're feeling fine after 4 or 5 days, maybe a week, but then they're there for, you know, 7 weeks. That's a lot of therapy. That's the big part of it. That's the biggest part of it. So it worked for me. It did well for me. I never want to do it again. And I think that was one of the motivators for me, is like, I can't screw this one up. I was blessed to have a job that gave me killer insurance to pay for all this stuff. I had short-term disability, so I didn't lose a penny. I was getting checks directly deposited to my bank every Friday, just like I was at work, and was just handed this massive amount of therapy and knowledge on how to cope. And when I walked away from all that, I was like, I don't want to throw all of that hard work away. And feeling grateful for the opportunity I had, where a lot of people can't afford that, or, you know, they walk out of a situation like that and totally in debt because they didn't have insurance. There was a lot of, you know, I had a lot of benefits that other people don't have at the time. So, plus there was so many other things that kept me from going back to drinking, which we're going to get to in the next video. So, as you can see, my hands have been moving around like that. I hope that doesn't annoy people. It's not clicking, but you know, doing these kinds of videos is a little different, a little more personal. So I have nervous tics, let's just say that. So look, thanks for hanging out for this video. I know these are longer, but it's a lot to talk about here. So I hope you all have a good night, and I'll have the part 3 of this here in a couple days, and then we'll move on to something else. But until then, have a great night, y'all. Thank you.